So this is where we left off in our map last time. Now, we can still make some changes to this. Let's say that maybe I've decided that I need to add a few more roads in here. So because we added these styles to the whole layer, it's really easy to add new streets to this layer and keep them in that same style. So if we just unlock the layer, make sure we have our pen tool selected. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit to make it easier for accuracy. And let's say I want to add this in here. And it will automatically style it in the same way as the rest of the layer. Maybe I want to go up here and add in this cross street as well. And maybe I want to finish Sunset. And we'll add Remington in here too. Ooh. I see what happened. That's okay. And let's smooth out that one. There we go. That's a bit better. Now this cross street here is a little bit different because it's two kind of separated by this median, and we actually have a monorail in between. I think that's the monorail. So we can add that in sort of similar ways as we added before. We can just use two streets if we want. But then you have to decide, what do you want to do about the monorail itself? And how do you want to depict some of the other elements in here? Let's go ahead and tell this to move across. There we go. Well, that's really kind of up to you to decide how you want to do that. Personally, I think I would just add a new layer. There we go. Lock this layer so I don't accidentally draw on it. Lock that layer. I think personally I would just add a new path here and give this its own specific style to match. Just to make sure it's really clear that we have this here. And we can even change some of these things too if we wanted to, so we can add a dash line around it, make it a little bit more visible that this is something to be aware of. Now, clicking stroke here also gives us some other options too that I didn't mention before. So we could go into some of our other layers if we wanted to. Let's lock that. For example, if we go here to little streets and we make sure we have everything selected, we go back into our appearance and we look at stroke, we can look at some of these things and see how they affect our map and see what we think about them. Now some of them won't make that much of a difference here, just depending on how everything has been drawn out. Maybe if we jump instead to the footpaths. So you can see a few differences here. Let's move this over where we can see a little bit better. And you can see this gives nice round edges or square edges, so you can decide what best fits your needs. More rounded caps versus more angular, or sort of cut on the edges. And of course they can be dashed as well if you want. And you can even decide if you want like some sort of gap in here to decide how you want this pattern to look exactly. Which could even result in rather unusual lengths if that's what you prefer. So there's a lot you can do with this if you want to, and of course some of them can be quite ridiculous, depending on what you need them for. But it's good to know that you have the options in case at some point you end up needing them. Oh, I could have scaled that down too, so it would have been less obnoxious. Alright, now I also want to label this somehow as being a monorail, so I think what I'm also going to do, just going to add in a new layer. I'm going to add in just some nice circles to kind of dignify that this is a monorail, and I want it to be nice and bright. So we'll go with yellow and orange. I think that yellow looks a little bit better. Make it a little bit smaller. And just like everything else, I can style this also if I want. So I could add in an additional stroke and maybe change it to dashed line, give this maybe a different color, make it large enough so we can actually see it. Ooh, that's a little weird. And I want the fill to be above that. I don't want the little dash lines on both sides, so if I move that up, there we go. And it looks sort of like a flower. Let's make that sharper. That's pretty decent, in my opinion. Alright, and I'm also just going to put letter M in there to sort of signify that this is the monorail, and I want to choose a better font. Actually, that looks decent, I think, for this map and the style. Instead of clicking on here and constantly switching that way, I can also just have it highlighted and move up and down through my fonts until I find one that I like. But I think that's the one I want. I think for safety purposes, it would be good to have two of these, so I'll just copy and paste and drag the other one up here, and I can move this one a little bit further down. I think that's pretty good. Alright, so the next thing before we get into all the park area and the grass and the bodies of water and the buildings would be the street names. Now, street names aren't hard per se, but they might make you a little unsure about things. So most people would assume you use the type tool, right? And that makes sense. So we can see here, actually we can't see, let's hide some of these so we can see. Alright, so we have College Way here. So let's write out College Way. And if we switch and now we try to rotate, we can rotate these where we need them to be. And that, of course, is pretty easy. Now, it can be a little hard to read with that behind it, plus it's not quite parallel with the road. So let's zoom in a bit, just so we can have more control over this rotation. There we go. And then what about this? Well, we can add a stroke to this as well, actually. And that will help a little bit. Now, unfortunately, the stroke is making it hard to read, so let's instead open our appearance panel again, and let's actually get rid of this default stroke, and we can even get rid of the default solid color, and instead we could add everything through here. We could add our stroke here, which we're going to make white, and we can add a new fill, which is now in front of that stroke. We don't have to worry about it getting in the way. How legible is that when we zoom out? I think it's better with the 2. And we can position this how we need to, however you prefer. Just be consistent across your different streets.